What's up, it's ENDYMION, and you guys remember Helldivers 2, the game that was supposed to take over the internet and become the next big live service game? Whatever happened to that game? Well, it turns out instead of winning players back, Arrowhead's own teams are allegedly doubling down and making everything even worse than before, and beyond this, sweet baby narratives are starting to form as their next big flop in the making is soon to release. Firstly, let's start with Helldivers 2, which has been bleeding players for months now at this point. It's no secret that the once mega hit has been brought down to its knees with 1,000 smaller cuts all over it the past few months. Players have left the game in droves ever since the whole PlayStation Network account controversy happened. And when Sony retracted that, it still didn't win the players back, as many saw the move by Sony to be a breach of trust. This resulted in loads of refunds. Then Arrowhead said it would never be a requirement, and yet to this day that PSN sign-in was never actually fully taken away. Just by looking at recent Steam numbers, Helldivers 2 has about 10% of its highest peak of players right now on Steam. Which some may say, hey, 40,000 players, that's still good, and it's not terrible, no, but these kinds of games, they live and die by their communities. I haven't played Helldivers in a while. Ever since that controversy, I just sort of lost a lot of interest in the whole thing, and I've since moved on to other games. But now the moderators over on Discord have decided instead of winning back players, it's time to turn Helldivers 2 into their own sanctioned state of woke ideology, and if you don't agree with it, you're out. This comes from Grums, who over on Twitter posted what someone sent him in regard to the internal discussions and planning over at Arrowhead Studios, where they have allegedly created a new handbook with how to deal with the community. One of the major points of this Helldivers handbook is that any mention of the term identity politics in any form within the official server will lead to automatic bans to any player regardless of their history with Arrowhead's community in the past. So you heard that right. They're becoming judge, jury, and executioner now, but it somehow gets worse. Apparently, by saying identity politics within any manner means you are now racist and are using that term to allude to people of color exclusively. As Grums puts it in his post, it's a fundamental misunderstanding on Arrowhead's community managers and their mods. And this blanket all-in-one ban power will do nothing but destroy their already dwindling fan base even further. I should mention that saying something has identity politics could mean a lot of things. It could mean that the game pushes gender ideas or deliberately makes the male characters weaker in comparison to female ones. Identity politics does not necessarily mean that people are against minorities of any group, but it is used when a game or piece of media is pushing what is quite literally political agendas that are tied to the identities of individuals. The mods argue in this handbook that there is nothing inherently political about one's identity, but I disagree with that. If there is nothing political about your identity, as in your gender or what you identify as, then these concepts would not be tied to actual laws where someone can be jailed for misinterpreting someone's preferred pronouns or identity. The concept of your identity was not political, say 10 years ago, when there was largely just he or she and everything was Looney Tunes Crazy World all over the place, but now? It absolutely is, and by denying it, you are frankly lying as soon as those words leave your lips. The fact you can, by accident, misgender someone in a video game live chat, and some games like Valorant, for example, have carte blanche power to not only ban you from their game for hate speech, but go as far as to brick your console or lock your browser account, disapproves all this. Identity these days is absolutely political because identity and things like your gender, skin color, and more have been used aplenty in order to weasel into positions based on these merits alone. Remember those Disney tapes that recently leaked on Twitter and how some higher-up executives got exposed saying Disney doesn't hire people for C-suite? Which is executive positions unless they fit certain ideological tenets first? If your livelihood, your career, your social presence, all of that is dictated and then categorized by your skin color, gender, what's between your legs, whatever, I don't know how to tell you this, but it is definitely politically driven. So when Helldivers' mods say it isn't, that's them using virtue signaling as a shield to conveniently position themselves to use those loopholes to get what they want while putting their boots on your neck. You understand? And for a game like Helldivers, which objectively was immensely popular because it rejected identity politics, is crazy that in just a short few months, everything was backpedaled and changed almost immediately to appease these freaks. Helldivers does not need to have real-world symbols. We had this conversation already in videos way back in February and March of this year. Players wanted rainbow flags and gender-specific flags as capes in-game, but Helldivers devs wouldn't allow it. They also rejected adding anything conservative either, like a Trump cape or Make America Great Again armor. Nothing was allowed, not even real-world flags, because of the obvious implications that would have on the game's community. Like I said in a video months ago, if Helldivers did that, imagine if one player had Israel as their flag cape and another had Palestine. You can already tell exactly what would happen in a game like this with friendly fire enabled by default. Those two players would be killing each other over and over, wasting all of your revives and getting nothing done but screaming at each other over politics. Yet if you remove the ability for such flags to be available, those two players could be playing with each other right now as we speak. And neither would know the political angles or agenda of the other, yet there they are in-game playing together towards a common goal. And personally, I think that's great. I guarantee you at some point, the most conservative guy you've ever met has played Helldivers unknowingly with the most left-leaning activist ever. And neither knew who the other was or anything, they just played the game, had each other's back, and eventually went their separate ways. And that's kinda beautiful, isn't it? But like always with every Western game ever made pretty much these days, these morons in the Discord are pushing to erase this for the typical echo chamber experience instead. As Helldivers' handbook says here, a new user declares that identity politics have no place in video games. Either Helldivers 2 or some other franchise. Outcome: immediate ban. This is a direct violation of rule number 1 in our server. Identity politics is code for marginalized groups like people of color and transgender people. As you can see, if you just bought the game and are looking to join the community, if you even by chance type those words, you're instantly gone forever. Wild, isn't it? They have a zero tolerance towards anything that doesn't fit their worldview, yet they try to spin the story that the Discord is a welcoming place. Which is just corpo speak for this place is for you as long as you follow every rule and believe and agree with every single thing we say for the rest of time. That's not a community, my friends. That is a cult. One moderator, whose name was blacked out, enforced these laws further by stating, "First of all, gender identity is in politics. Someone's identity isn't a political manner. Second of all, since y'all can't behave, we can't talk about stuff like that in here. Thirdly, this chat isn't the place to discuss gender identity or the LGBTQIA+ community. However, if you see someone discussing it and decide to shit on it instead of just reporting it to moderation, you'll be banned for bigotry. We are now going to respectfully move the conversation along, and anyone who wants to keep clown reacting or argue can get a 24-hour timeout, thank you." So if you even put a reaction to this moderator's post in the form of an emoji they don't like, you get banned for at least 1 day. This is what happens when you give a certain subsection of nerds power over other nerds. It's these specifically weird nerds that go out of their way to wave power around because they likely don't have any of that in real life. So they enact their power over others to feel better about themselves. It's so pathetic. Like recently, I was playing Destiny 2. My Discord username is obviously my YouTube channel because it just makes everything easier. Anyway, I went to a Destiny LFG server that I've been on for a while, never really commented on there or anything. But I wanted to find people to do some quests, so I went on there and I said that I was looking for people for this certain mission. I kid you not, within 5 seconds, I was banned from the LFG server immediately with no explanation. I hadn't said anything bigoted, controversial, nothing. I simply asked if anyone was down to do a certain mission in the game. Mind you, this was asked in a server created for this very purpose for one specific game, and yet I was banned. Why, you may ask? My best guess is whichever mod saw my name likely doesn't like me because they believe I am a hateful bigot for being outspoken on certain topics. And likely the very existence of me participating in this Discord server was triggering enough for them, and therefore I was just banned immediately. This is what Discord is like for many. You give power to some terminally online psycho who has no power in their real lives, and then they just go buck wild with it. And then these people invite their own friends with similar thought processes, and then they all do the same thing too. Until eventually, you have an entire moderator team of terminally online weirdos just wielding their power without regard and doing whatever they want. And this is what is happening with Helldivers 2, as if the game needed more problems or controversy at this point. Here's what the official opening page of this handbook says and what Arrowhead allegedly demands of their moderators, and I quote, "Welcome aboard, Agents of Democracy. Everyone here at Arrowhead Game Studios and Sony Interactive Entertainment appreciate your commitment to creating a safe and inclusive space to play Helldivers and Helldivers 2. This guide is meant to help you understand your role as a Discord moderator, however, no guide is comprehensive. If you have any questions, concerns, or observations, please do not hesitate to reach out to the Arrowhead community team. General guidelines for moderators of the Helldivers official Discord: be respectful, treat all users with respect, and encourage a positive and inclusive environment. Lead by example and engage in civil and constructive discussions, enforce server rules and terms of service. Familiarize yourself with not only the server rules but also Discord's terms of service and ensure that all members adhere to them. Take appropriate action when violations occur, such as warning, muting, or banning offenders. Maintain order. Monitor chat channels regularly to prevent spamming, trolling, or excessive off-topic discussions. Remove or redirect disruptive content to maintain a focused and enjoyable experience for all users. Promote fair play. Encourage fair play and discourage cheating, hacking, or exploiting game mechanics. Promptly investigate and take appropriate action against those who engage in unfair practices. Encourage healthy gameplay, foster a positive gaming atmosphere by promoting sportsmanship and discouraging toxic behavior including harassment, discrimination, or personal attacks. Address conflicts promptly and mediate disputes to de-escalate tensions." End quote. It's funny how Arrowhead created this opening handbook page to pretty much just tell moderators to do their job when they have almost instantly become drunk off of their own power when it came to enforcing such rules onto others. As we see here listed in the server rules, it reads, "Freedom and liberty are the ideals that every citizen of Super Earth embodies. Citizens and Helldivers alike never engage in hate speech based on but not limited to race, gender, creed, sexual orientation, disability, or nationality." Apparently, the infamous phrase "no politics," which used to be in the Helldivers 2 handbook, is now gone from every page that was presented in Grump's tweet about this, which makes me believe that Arrowhead likely just outright lied about all of this from the beginning. And in reality, Helldivers was always a heavily political game for these devs both in-game world and when it came to discussion. They simply played the players and used their trust to lure them in to make money off of them, but eventually, which didn't take long by the way, mind you the game has only been out for what, like 5 months at this point? Then these moderators and devs just couldn't hide their true intentions any longer and are now working to ruin the fanbase even more. This all felt like, to me anyways, the classic tactics that other companies employ as well. What I mean is that they on purpose implement politics or make radical changes simply to rile up the fanbase and cause players to leave. Which may sound counterintuitive, but it's very likely the people that do end up leaving are the ones that don't politically align with the moderators in the first place. So ultimately the goal here is to remove any and all players who don't belong in the right thing crowd. And this then can make the game a massive echo chamber where only those who agree with those crazy people are allowed to remain. Basically, Helldivers 2 was like the USA, a bunch of different people with varying opinions, but they all live together. Now Helldivers 2 is California, and anyone who doesn't agree with their leftist beliefs are excommunicated, banned, or pushed out to make way for more malleable fan bases. It's what Star Wars and Warhammer have done as well with their communities, implement controversial changes on purpose to rile up and make people that don't agree with such changes to leave forever, which in turn makes them lose money in the short run for sure. But in the long run, they truly believe that they can attract and replenish that dwindling fan base with new players, and then it's all gravy from there on. And maybe that famous quote on Arrowhead's website, which is also in their CEO's Twitter account info, is ringing true now, which says, "A game made for everyone is a game made for no one," but now that phrase has taken on a different meaning entirely. It seems Helldivers is now a game not made for anyone but the most identity political activists and their yes men and women and their they-them friends. Anyone who doesn't believe in the cult-like religion is deemed to stay away, and based on those dwindling engagement numbers, I think Arrowhead is getting what they want. But is there enough players to sustain this game forever? Probably not. But if the game fails and whatnot, you'll be sure to hear that it was the racist-based crowd out there who are at fault for allowing Helldivers to fail, instead of the woke lunatics who keep doing everything within their power to ensure that their ideology and belief is upkept, no matter the cost. Let me know what you think about all of this, but now let's move on to this next story. So there's a game called Flintlock Siege of Dawn. It has been confirmed 100% to be a Sweet Baby Inc. game. Even the co-founder Kim Belair has been confirmed to be working on this game. And if rumors are to be believed in the previews from websites, the game is currently struggling for any sort of engagement or pre-orders at all. From that Park Place, Woe Gaming Media begin narrative blitz for upcoming Sweet Baby Inc. influenced game Flintlock Siege of Dawn. We originally found out this game was SBI infected when Cabrutus Rambo found proof of this within Edge magazine, where Sweet Baby is explicitly stated to be involved. Edge magazine said in that excerpt where they interviewed the very woke developer named Audrey Tops Harjo, and I quote, "For Flintlock, it was Tops Harjo who brought on Kim Belair, the Montreal-based narrative director who has advocated for better representation in stories as a means of bringing new and exciting ideas to games. She took the wonderful base layer Derek had, the world, and just elevated it. You know the difference when there's a person who's reflecting at you and is true. There's a certain truth that resonates that can't be faked. I know some people won't notice, but the people who are attuned to that, they'll get it immediately." To stop the quote here for a second, the interview then goes into how the mythological gods within Flintlock's world are actually allegories for colonialism. So here's what that Edge magazine article kept saying, and I quote again. "Those gods are almost a symbol of colonialism. They are people who have taken over your agency. What do you do when you wrestle with that structure? To find and gain your own identity. It's still a game, it's still gods and guns. But when you look at it from that lens, there's another layer on top of that from Nor being a woman of color. It makes the character and the dynamic even more an echo of reality." End quote. So Flintlock is apparently a game where you play a black female main character who runs around mercilessly killing white men and defeating gods that are allegories for colonialism, because white men bad and the land belongs to the natives and all of that. It's a bold strategy on Flintlock's part, but unfortunately, it's not resulting in pre-order sales whatsoever. Any preview article you read about the game pretty much states that the game is fine to play, but not amazing in any way. And that each person at any website you can find, they're all worried that Flintlock will struggle and be unable to find an audience due to the subject matter and when it releases as well, which is soon by the way. Also, the person that was in that Edge magazine whose name is Audrey Tops Harjo is the same person who allegedly ruined Flintlock's developer with diversity, equity, and inclusion and forced the studio to hire Sweet Baby Inc. in the first place and use her own DEI group to make the game as well. Grums collected all of this a while back, but Flintlock also allegedly featured a white female protagonist until Kim Belair and Harjo forced the studio to change the main character into a black woman instead. Here is what Grums said in regards to Flintlock, and I mean, come on man, this is so bad, and I quote, "Before I go further, please note this is rumor from a source that seems very knowledgeable about the studio's inner workings. Take it as it is. If others would like to verify, please DM me. The CEO and COO at A44 are no longer with the company, but the damage seems to have been done. Did you know the protagonist of Flintlock used to be white? When CEO and casting director Audrey Tops Harjo joined the studio, her first actions were to change the character to hire Sweet Baby Inc. and change the main character to a person of color. This marked the beginnings of the problems with the game and studio. Audrey Tops Harjo is rumored to have used the company's funds and manpower to power her own personal agenda and projects and initiative not related to the game or even the studio itself. One such initiative that I found is Inclusion FX, a VFX company and advocacy company with shades of Sweet Baby Inc. She held this position at Flintlock at the same time she ran Inclusion FX. I asked and confirmed. Yeah, I have witnessed our UI artists making art assets for its website as their sprint tasks. Aside from working with Sweet Baby Inc. and making changes to the game, Audrey also directed numerous changes in HR in her role as COO. In 2021, most developers were denied raises and evaluations were postponed for at least 6 months. Audrey told HR to inform anyone who complained or asked questions that the reasons is because I said so. She also ordered the HR department to hide the salaries of the top executives of the company. HR tried to help but were unable to get past this. The team was worried about the studio's finances. Meanwhile, the new hires and changes to the game resulted in a project where these people know nothing about how a video game is made. After nearly 2 years of these DEI changes at A44, the damage had been done. At this point, the studio was purchased For $175 million, an unusually high sum for a small studio by the way, by Kepler Interactive in September of 2021, a gaming collective fund whose founder also founded the Kowloon Knights Gaming Fund. It was at this point that Audrea, the CEO, left the company. Perhaps this was the start of a cleanup of the game's troubles. The state of the game is unknown at this time, but is believed to be in shambles after this 2-year round of DEI changes. As we know now, A44 reached out to Kobrutis to refute SBI's involvement, saying that they are no longer involved and that all their changes were reversed, but when Kobrutis asked for proof, they refused to speak to him any further, end quote. So as you can see, this Flintlock game is allegedly cooked from the inside out and was basically used as a punching bag by Sweet Baby and his Harjo lady to extort funds into their companies in order to fatten their pockets and leave the small studio weak and useless. Once the studio had allegedly run out of money to make further changes, SBI's Kim Belair and Harjo left, and now the studio is left with a game that is riddled with DEI. And according to previews, like I said, none of them claim the game feels good to play or anything like that. This is likely going to be another game that reviews poorly, likely somewhere in the low 60s on Metacritic, will not foster an audience, and will just be sent out to die. And then maybe someone will play it once it gets heavily discounted and Flintlock will join the myriad of forgotten games never to be seen again. As you can see, these activists are running these games into the ground for their own personal benefit. Harjo allegedly used her position to force Flintlock to use her other company, Inclusion VFX, which of course then makes her even more money. And since we know from previous leaks that Sweet Baby had asked Game Science, the makers of Black Myth Wukong, for around $7 million for consulting fees, you can only imagine the amount of money that was laundered and thrown around when it came to Flintlock. I genuinely believe that Sweet Baby Inc. is literally a scam. They create problems and send in people they know to fix said problems and get paid for all of it. I am convinced that they are ruining these studios on purpose in order to fatten their own wallets, and they don't care how many companies, studios, or franchises get ruined in the long run. It is a sad state of affairs, but I wouldn't be surprised if Flintlock fails in every way when it releases and then falls into obscurity. And by the way, the game comes out July 18, 2024 according to its release date trailer. If you care to buy it, which I would guess you aren't, but you know, I thought I'd say it anyways. But as you can see, from Flintlock being sabotaged and Helldivers 2 being driven into an early grave by activist moderators and community managers, this problem is widespread. My advice, don't buy anything that pushes this sort of stuff. Helldivers was fun while it lasted, but sadly supporting a company that allows these weirdos to run amok is not doing them any favors. As for Flintlock, that game will likely just come and go. I wouldn't even be surprised if no game store even advertises the game at all. But this is what happens when you chase DEI, fellas. It's always and forever will be a race to see who gets into their grave the fastest. What a damn shame, right? Thank you for watching, subscribe, share, and let me know what I should cover next. Thanks to my patrons, have a great day, go enjoy some gaming free of all this crap, and I'll see you in the next one.